with Blockheads, I spent a year making Blockheads and then I launched it. And that year was just like, I've just got to get this game out as soon as possible. I was really quite low on funds and I was like, I got to get this game out. And I was working hard and fast and making a massive mess of the code. And then when I had to actually do updates after that, I was okay for a couple of years, but then it just got too hard. I just couldn't add anything to the code anymore. So I learned a lot. And so, yeah, Sapiens is a lot tidier. And in fact, so the majority of the code is actually Lua. So that's open source, basically. And you can go into the game resources directory and just look through it and see all the code. So I kind of knew while I was writing that other people were going to look at it, which might have helped a little bit.
Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Zero to Play podcast. I'm your host, Carl Leduc, and today I'm joined by Dave Frampton. Dave is the creator of recently released game Sapiens, a prehistoric civilization game. He's also known for the Blockheads, Chopper, and Chopper 2. Today we'll be talking about his 7-year journey developing Sapiens, how it felt to rank among the top games on Steam last week, and advice for other indie devs out there. A big thank you to Prismatic Studios for being our Season 6 sponsor, more on them later, but for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Zero to Play podcast. Alright, welcome Dave to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, this is really exciting. One, through the NZGDA, I found your project a couple months ago. I was really interested in the development of it, and it was awesome to see last week when you released an early access on Steam that you ranked in the top, the top 20 best-selling games on Steam for a period of time, which I actually don't know where you're sitting on the ranking now, but it was awesome to see, and it made its waves through the New Zealand game dev community, which was really exciting. So I have a bunch of questions about that, and the way I understand it is you've been working on Sapiens for the last 7 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the first couple of years were just experimental. I wasn't really getting into it too much. It was sort of part-time. I was doing a lot of other stuff, so it's been about 5 years, right? Really full-time work with a bit more before that. But yeah, I mean, however you look at it, it's a long period of time to spend on a game.
Totally, yeah, and that's what I really love about just game dev in general, is that you really spend years like toying with a concept that's something that you're passionate about, and I just love seeing projects like this start to come into being a real game and also being really welcomed by the community, which I can imagine must be hugely validating for you. So how did it feel last week when you kind of clicked the button that kind of turned it on for people to be able to engage with? What was that moment like when you started to see the reception that it was getting?
Well, it was all really positive. I mean, it was amazing. It was so good. I guess I didn't know what to expect. So it was quite like, it was very tense, just wondering what exactly was going to happen. But at the same time, I'd sort of planned for the worst and kind of, sort of planned for the worst, hope for the best kind of thing. And so I felt ready, but it was still just very tense, very stressful. And then when the positive feedback starts coming in, even then, because I've released games before, like Blockheads on mobile, and I knew that the first feedback's always positive because people have been hanging out for it and they're your biggest fans and they're like, yeah, we've got it, woohoo! And then like a day later or a few days later, you start getting those negative reactions, and I was sort of waiting, like, how bad is this going to be as well? So I kind of knew that it wasn't over just because I'd pushed the button. But yeah, even in the last few days, yes, there's been negative reviews, but the balance is still really positive. So I'm just stoked, really.
Yeah, and I think your YouTube vlogs have been your dev vlogs have been really valuable just for that building that community over a long period of time. I wonder, did you have any expectations for how you would like to do at launch, and what those kind of benchmarks were, and were they surpassed at all? Like, did you have any KPIs that you wanted to reach with going to early access?
It's a little bit tricky, I guess, because those expectations changed a lot in the lead up to launch. Like what I wanted from the release a year ago is very different to what I wanted from the release a few weeks ago. And that's just because you start to see the reaction and it sort of builds up your hopes more, and you sort of, so I guess like if I went back a year ago, I'd be like, wow, this has been absolutely huge, way bigger than I ever expected back then. But then when I was seeing the numbers building up, I had much more, you sort of narrow it down to what you're expecting. But still, it's beyond what I hoped for even a few weeks ago. It's done really well. Like, it's right at that top end of what I thought was kind of possible with where everything was kind of sitting. So yeah,
That's
it's good.
amazing. I'm really happy to hear that. Because I'm sure that's a dream for so many indie devs out there. What do you think attributed to the success that went beyond your expectations? Were there any kind of like things that happened, maybe a couple things one after the other, that really vaulted it into this different area that you didn't expect?
Well, I think a big decision that I made that really impacted things was going with the PR company. So initially I was going to try to launch it myself, just completely myself, like I've done in the past. But I did decide to use Vicarious, a PR company, to help me out. And there's no doubt that really opened up, more opportunities, where they're sending that out to 200 YouTubers and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of knew I needed to do that, but I think, they did a much better job. And so I was able to see this hype sort of building up in the days going, the lead up. There was also Next Fest, which the timing was really good. Like, it was a few weeks beforehand. So I guess I probably would have put it into Next Fest, but that was one thing that Vicarious really encouraged me to do, was like, you need to have this in Next Fest, there's no doubt. And that was just huge. Like, that built up a huge amount of hype beforehand that was, really valuable.
Yeah, that is really interesting. What has been your journey with a PR company? Because I know with a lot of the indie devs I've spoken to, marketing is, it's not an area that they're usually passionate about. It's making the game, not so much marketing it. Yet marketing is people say is like 50% of the success of the game. Getting it out there. What has been your experience with either PR companies or marketing? Building community, like, how do you kind of view all that in the process of making a game?
Yeah, I mean, I've had various thoughts about it along the way. I mean, I'm obviously fiercely independent. I've stayed solo for so long, and I have, I don't really want to have a publisher. I like to, call the shots and just have full control. So yeah. I think really where they really helped was that I didn't really know, like, I'd never launched on Steam before, so I didn't know all the ins and outs. And so I was actually quite apprehensive about it. I sort of believed that I could do it, but I just wasn't too sure. So that's where they could really help, was to say, okay, you need to do this. Like, just little things like, you need to make a roadmap. I didn't know that was something that was expected. And it's been really, really useful, just because I can just, if someone says, is this coming? 9 times out of 10, it's in the roadmap. And I can say, yep, have a look at the roadmap. It's really good. Just lots of little things like that. So it gives you that confidence and stuff.
So what do you mean by roadmap? So roadmap within Sapiens itself, or is this Magic Jungle as a company?
Oh, sorry. So the roadmap's just like an image that says, like, this is the phase of like, well, this is what I have planned for development throughout early access. So it's just sort of an image that you can point people to that says, this is what we're planning.
Cool.
And I might have had some kind of less formal thing, but just making it formal is good.
Yeah, I might link the roadmap underneath this video for those that are interested. But for just the ones that are listening, what does that roadmap look like? Like, how long does it go until? And is there a full release scoped for some point?
Yeah, I've kept it relatively vague, especially time, like actual time. There's no times. There's just 3 phases, and I've said there's probably going to be a 4th phase before the actual full release.
Cool.
But it was really just taking my to-do list and just putting it in an image. And just finding the major features in it, because I've sort of been planning that all along. I've always had quite a good to-do list with a lot of kind of details. So, and it's kind of built up over the years, but it's, I've got a lot planned. So it's just a matter of sort of sharing that.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good actionable piece of advice, I feel, for indie devs out there, especially when nearing a big release or a big launch, is turning those to-do lists and those jumbled post-it notes into a road. I think the word roadmap resonates with the community as well, and just people knowing what to expect, and people that want to engage more in what's to come is turning that into a timeline can be really valuable for the community. What has your YouTube journey been like? How much do you attribute the success to your YouTube journey?
Yeah, well, so yeah, when you're asking about the PR company, I guess I was sort of thinking this is something that I guess made me overconfident, perhaps the fact that I'd already built up that following, and I was thinking, oh, I can launch because I've got this following already, and I know that it's going to do okay, and it's like I don't really need a PR company and stuff, but I'm still glad I did it. But yeah, I mean, the YouTube thing's just been amazing. It's been fantastic, and I would recommend trying to do it. But I mean, yeah, so for a long time when I was doing that, so I was actually. I probably should say what I actually did. So I started making devlogs right back at the start, and in fact, the first video I did wasn't really a devlog. It was just like, look at this thing that I'm messing around with. It was just like a planet renderer.
Yeah.
And then I posted, and it got like a couple of hundred views or something, just from sort of Twitter and just stuff like that. And people were quite like, wow, this looks really cool. And I thought, okay, that actually kind of gave me a bit more enthusiasm for it.
Awesome.
And then so I thought I'd turn it into a devlog from that point. And so I was just chipping away at it, just doing these devlogs and just working on the game. And each devlog would get maybe a couple of hundred views as well. A little bit of a following starting to build, but nothing much. And then about 4 years in, I did this summary video. So I was like, I went back and kind of edited all of the videos I'd done into a short sort of 20-minute summary. And that one just took off and ended up getting about 300,000 views just from the YouTube algorithm sort of saying people are liking it and stuff. And so from then I had a pretty decent following. There were, thousands of people watching each video. And
How do you feel about devlogs now? Do you still have the same kind of sense of passion, or like what's changed in kind of how you go about it? Are devlogs or YouTube videos something that you do plan to continue to do going forward?
Yeah, well, that's something that I've been thinking a lot about, because it's quite, a lot of it was quite technical, and it was like for people, other developers and things. And now I've got all these players who are going to want kind of news about what's coming, and it's quite a different audience.
Yeah.
And I don't know how yet I'm going to actually handle that. So I'm due to do my first kind of devlog, post-release devlog soon. So I guess it might change a bit. I'd like to kind of keep it the same, because I think, it was kind of cool what I was doing. It'd be nice to just carry it on. But I think it will have to change a little bit with a bit more sort of player focus as well.
Yeah, that is really interesting. What kind of content do you think would work for a player driven audience compared to devlogs, which are great for those early adopters, potentially also programmers? What kind of content do you see appealing to a player type audience that aren't technical?
Well, yeah, I think it is more or less the same. It's just tone down a bit of the technical details a bit, and take out some of the things. I mean, everything's going to change now anyway, because before I was operating just in my I had testers, and I was operating within their feedback and stuff. But to get like this, there's this thing once the game's out there, no matter what you do, like if you change anything, there'll be someone who hates the change, even if it's way better objectively. It's like someone will hate it because they're used to it the way it is and stuff. So it's everything kind of changes, and I'm expecting that. But I actually don't know. I mean, I'm just going to sit down and try to record a devlog with everything in mind and see how it goes. It's tricky.
Other than YouTube, are there any other platforms that have kind of led to the success of your community growing that you'd like to attribute it to?
Discord, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, so I set up some forums, because with Blockheads I had forums that were quite popular and grew into a big thing for the community. So I set up the same kind of forums and stuff, but they've just been absolutely dead. Nothing's happened there at all. So whereas Discord is very active, and that's where the community's kind of formed. So I think it's like sometimes you don't really have control over where the community happens. It just sort of, wherever the most popular place is, that'll be where it happens, and that's kind of. Yeah, and I mean, I kind of wanted to have control, because it's generally accepted that you don't want to it's better if it's on your servers, so that you're not going to have a bunch of ads coming in or whatever. You've got total control over it. But ultimately, now I'm stuck with Discord. I think that's where the community is. So,
well, you could probably create like a locked channel with all of the like FAQs, so that everyone engages with the Discord channel similarly to how they engage with the forum. And you can try and do your best to connect the two, or just have a link to the forum for those that do want to engage that way. But that is a really good point. It's just kind of following the trends. Discord definitely seems to be a big trend for private communities in the last year.
Yeah.
What about other platforms like Twitter or anything on like Facebook that you've connected with people through, or is that it?
Yeah, so initially I sort of set up everything. I think I had an Instagram and a Twitter and a Facebook and all that. Twitter's still great. I like to just post little updates there, and it's just I don't know. I'm so familiar with Twitter. I've been on there for years, so it's like I'm quite comfortable there, and no problems. Facebook, I actually maybe midway through development, I just said I'm not really going to keep maintaining this page because it was starting to grow, but I just hate Facebook. The problem with Facebook is that unless you pay, no one's going to see your stuff. And so you might be able to build up an audience, but half of that audience isn't going to even see what you post, or most of that audience. And then really what you've done is you've created this audience that all your competitors can market to if they feel like it.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
It doesn't seem useful in any way to be without actually just spending massive amounts of money, which just seems pointless. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, before I go into detail, before I ask a few questions about, why Sapiens, why did you decide to make this game? I'd love to just hover a bit more around what it was like with the explosion of interest that happened. Were there any other surprises that happened in the last couple of weeks that have really maybe like shifted your perspective of game dev as a career, or just what you're doing, where your passion is? Like what kind of feelings or moments kind of happened that you think are worth sharing?
Yeah, well, I guess the one thing that stands out, like in the lead up, I started to almost panic that it was going to be like too big, like that I wouldn't be able to handle it. The support load would be massive, and I wouldn't be able to fix any bugs because I'd be so busy dealing with like press and just all this kind of stuff. And like, I kind of knew like, if that happens, then I've made it, so who cares? But at the same time, it's like, well, how do I actually deal with that? I need to start planning, like if it actually is successful. And so what's happened is that it's successful, but it's not that bad. And I think part of the reason that I was quite stressed about that is because with the Blockheads, when I launched it on mobile, it got 600,000 downloads on the first day. And so like I went from nothing, there was no following before that basically, to just like absolutely just swamped, and I just couldn't keep up. I couldn't respond to support emails or anything. So I was worried about that, but actually it's turned out fine. Like it's manageable. It's busy and it's tough, but it's okay. I'm going to be all right. So that's a big relief.
Yeah, and just quickly on that. So Magic Jungle, you said you're independent. Do you have any other full-time employees or contractors that you work with? And do you hope to build that more? Like, do you feel like there's a transition right now happening with Dave Frampton, the indie dev, and then Magic Jungle, the game dev studio?
Yeah, I still don't know. So I have had Miller working for me as a community manager for Blockheads. So when I just got completely overwhelmed with Blockheads, I got Miller as a contractor to kind of help out with the support emails and managing the forums and stuff. And she's done a great job of that. Ultimately, I've kind of decided not to get Miller to help with Sapiens, just because I wanted to see if I could sort of do it myself, and it looks like I'm going to be able to do that. So Miller's just focusing on Blockheads still. And I've used contractors in the past to do a few things. The music in Sapiens was made by John Konslakis as a composer. So it's not totally me. Like I have had help. I've done all the development though. As far as the future goes, I think at the moment where it's tracking and stuff, that I can probably cope okay, just carry on, which would be actually awesome, because I do enjoy it. I like being just me and just not having to have meetings, and just there's a lot of advantages. But I have a lot planned for Sapiens. I've got like multiplayer coming, VR. I've got there's people building mods right now, all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of potential, and I'm still kind of, I guess, hopeful as well that it will even go further as I do these updates. So still potentially I might need help at some point, but for now I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah, so my vibe so far has been that you don't want a publisher, or you don't see the value of a publisher right now. Is that something that has changed? Do you feel like if the right publisher reached out, that there could be a relationship there? or is that something you're pretty sold on? You know what you need to do. I think the publisher conversation is interesting for indie devs in a position like you are.
Yeah, it is interesting, and it's something that I've thought about a lot. So I guess for me, like I'm self-funded, and I'm using the success from blockheads in my previous games to fund the development of Sapiens. It wasn't going to go on forever. I needed to make some money to kind of carry on. But now Sapiens has made that money, so I can keep going, which is means that I don't need to financially find a publisher. And I think mostly when you're finding a publisher, there's this agreement that they'll sort of pay your bills so you can kind of keep going. And often it's almost like a move of desperation, like you need the money now to be able to keep going, to be able to release the game and all that kind of stuff. And I don't have that, so that kind of means the publishers don't have that kind of control or bargaining chip, or that kind of arrangement isn't going to make any sense. So yeah, I guess if a publisher came along that could somehow we could reach an agreement without that and it could still work well, then yeah, I'm open to it.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I see some similarities between you and Sam Barham from Balancing Monkey Games, where they developed Before We Leave, and then they got Team 17 on as a publisher to help them port over to Steam because they were exclusive on Epic Games. So they released on Steam with Team 17, and now they've done a Nintendo Switch port and an Xbox port, using Team 17's kind of resources for that. So is that kind of relationship something that you would be interested in, is like a publisher that helps with porting or localization or things like that?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, definitely. Sapiens is going to be a good fit on console, and I definitely want to have console ports. But I guess again, the thing is, like, I've actually got mostly controller support working, and I've done a lot of the work to actually make it already work. So a publisher can't offer me a huge amount there. So it's like, where can a publisher add value? And at the moment, it's not clear, but it might become more clear. But if I can release it, like do a Switch, I mean, it may be just that I need a distributor rather than a full publisher, or a publisher that just does the distribution sort of side and marketing. So yeah, it's just a matter of finding an agreement that works, I guess.
Yeah, no, interesting. And PR wise, are you planning on I think you said Vicarious PR was the company. Are they going to be on board for the roadmap for when you eventually get to full release, or is that something you're still figuring out? That you're going to decide on later on.
I think I've had a really good experience with them. So yeah, I mean, we haven't discussed it, but I think it certainly makes sense to use them, or a PR company again to do sort of major updates and stuff, to help push major updates. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. Thank you for being so candid with your answers. This is I know this is really valuable to those out there working on their dream game. So, talking about the first devlog that you did, you said you just kind of put out the the world renderer. At that point, did you have the concept of Sapiens and what you wanted to do? Like, what was the first moment that you kind of went down this direction of wanting to build a civilization game?
That was a long process too, sort of figuring that out. There were a lot of ideas that I had that, some of them were quite strong, and I wasn't going to compromise on even before I started writing any code. Like, I had some ideas around sort of resource management and the idea that would be sort of it's just things like, so like in a lot of the building games like Minecraft and stuff, where you've got really nice, good flexibility for building, there's not generally a lot of purpose for that building. And so I wanted to make a game where you had things in the world that actually needed the stuff that you'd built for, just these interactions, like a little bit like Factorio or something, where, you place something and it's part of a big process that requires stuff to be taken from other stuff. So that was sort of the general idea right at the start. And then it was just a matter of figuring out what those things that needed the stuff you were doing were going to be. And it just made sense to make it people because, they're more relatable, and, you can get them talking to each other and all that kind of stuff. And then when I was thinking about, like, so you've been thrown into this empty world, why are you in this empty world? What, where do you start and stuff? And then initially I was thinking maybe it would be future, maybe it would be like post-apocalyptic, so you've got sort of old ruins around and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I ultimately decided on the primitive thing, and that's where it ended up. And I don't know. Yeah, it just seemed like a good fit.
Yeah. When you mentioned like resource management and that being something that you'd already kind of decided on, do you have other kind of core pillars of the game that you feel like make up what Sapiens is and what you kind of want to stick by for future development?
I mean, yes, yeah, there are certain things. I mean, those are sort of the main ones. I can't sort of recall them off the top of my head. I mean, certainly like resource, like I wanted individual resources, and I didn't want. One thing that annoyed me in like Minecraft was like big storage like chests full of stuff, and you're trying to sort them all and move them around, like especially when it's modded and you've got thousands of different items and stuff. It just became impossible to manage, and so I actually wanted them to be physical in the world, and that doesn't solve the problem, but it just makes it more interesting. You know, it's just you can see them, all these objects piled up around the place. So that was sort of one of the main things. But yeah, and the kind of that factory thing of just, you know, processing things into more advanced things, and technological progression, you know, that was always going to be there, and just just having a reason to build this stuff.
This episode of the Zero to Play podcast is brought to you by Prismatic Studios. Prismatic Studios is an Unreal Engine technical consultancy based in Auckland, New Zealand, focusing on development services for clients that need support prototyping, implementing and testing features, or adding development resources to existing projects. With their expertise using Unreal Engine, they can help consult and work alongside your teams to avoid common pitfalls that are so common in software and game development these days. Reach out to them today for a quote or free consultation. A link to their website can be found in the description below. Back to the show. Is there an end game, or is there like a message that you want to convey to the players of the game? I guess that they're two questions, but is there an end game of Sapiens at the moment?
Not really. I mean, there's the end of the tech tree, and some people treat that as the end game. So there's people on Steam leaving negative reviews because they get through the tech tree, like they just go as fast as they can through the tech tree. They manage to get through it in like 2, 3, 4 hours or whatever, and they're like, "There's no content in this game. It sucks," you know. And it's like, yeah, well, that's not really how I designed it. You know, that's not what I had in mind. So no, as far as I'm concerned, there is no end game, and it just carries on, and you're just trying to build and maintain a tribe, and then it's a creative game, right? Like it's just for like, you know, building a town the way that you want.
Yeah, interesting. And do you have any sort of, because this kind of falls into games as a form of art, if you're trying to like convey a message about the world, about culture, whatever, is that an area that you have a lot of, I don't know, thoughts on or value in, that you've thought of when developing Sapiens, like a sort of message that you want to leave with the player after playing the game?
Yeah, and there's no like, oh, I'm just trying to, you know, show this one particular message or anything like that. It's more that, you know, certain questions have come up throughout development, and I've had to decide how to solve them in ways that work okay with my worldview and all that kind of stuff. There's one thing that I really like about Sapiens is that, so like if you chop down all the trees, then you start to get in trouble because there's no trees left. Like things don't just respawn. If you chop down a tree, it's gone. So you've got to kind of, you know, sustainably manage your resources. And that's not unique, but it's something that I like in the game. And same with like if you need dirt or rock or whatever, and you start quarrying, then it just wrecks the visual look of the place. You just got these big ugly quarries all over the place and stuff like that. And I like that. It feels good. It's like, you know, we do make an impact, and we have the opportunity to clean up after ourselves, and you know, that's good stuff.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and there's some interesting issues around like child labor in Sapiens. Like the kids will carry stuff around, and it's like I don't want them to work as hard as they do in Sapiens. I've got some work to do there, but it's just like, yeah, you know, people are saying, oh, why are the kids working? And then other people will say, oh, well, you know, probably they did. And it's like, yeah, well, actually they probably did. Like kids would have been helping out, you know, back in the day. They wouldn't have been all off to school. So yeah. I think it's interesting, like just thinking about those sorts of issues and stuff.
Just playing pick up sticks in the corner. There's probably some interesting mechanics you can evolve over there. Maybe some player choice there. Is there a big narrative component to the game, from like characters to dialogue to stories that you you know that you think is important for like what Sapiens is?
I guess not in the scheme of things. Like for me, I think it's important that the players create their own narrative. You know, it's one of these games where things just happen. You know, you'll see someone like so a guy will just rip off his cloak because he got too hot, and then a woman will come and pick it up and take it away, and it's just like, what's how did that happen? Why is she picking up his coat or whatever? It's just the AI scheduler decided to do it that way, but it just kind of makes these little stories, things that happen, or they'll run off, and the mammoth hunts are kind of entertaining and stuff. So I mean, no, there's not any kind of core message that I'm trying to create or push on anyone or anything. It's just that like I want the sandbox that creates these opportunities for these kind of stories to evolve.
Yeah, well, kind of pulling on that thread. You mentioned you want to add some modding features to the game. You've also mentioned sandbox and games like Minecraft. What are your thoughts on emergent gameplay and someone creating like a new experience from playing Sapiens? Is that something that you think is really important, or an area that, a community that you want to form around that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm hugely excited about that. I think there's massive potential because, like, the modding is just, you can pretty much replace the whole game if you want to. It's just, totally flexible to do whatever. But at the same time, it kind of terrifies me because, I could lose complete control. And someone could make a mod that's more popular than the game itself, or who knows. So it's terrifying but exciting, and I don't know. There was never any question. Like, as soon as I realized that I could put mods and have mod support in the game, it was like, well, I want to just blow this right open and let everyone do anything they want and deal with the consequences. But we're just gonna have to see what actually happens.
Yeah, so obviously you probably won't be able to predict what kind of mods will be created, but are there a few kind of common threads that you think could be important for the future of Sapiens? Like, what kind of mods do you imagine people creating, at least for now, like in the beginning?
Yeah, well, I mean, so we've got a lot of localization mods coming up now. They're sort of the first thing because it's like suddenly you can get a whole bunch of people being able to play it in their own language and stuff. So that's great. We've got some new content coming in that people are working on, new mobs and new building components and stuff like that. So that's kind of the logical kind of next step sort of there. Because, I mean, the community's just got the game and they're trying to figure it all out. And it's kind of, it's going to take a while to get to the more in-depth stuff. But I think also once we have multiplayer, and especially with VR, you could sort of, so you've got like VR chat, which is this app where you can stand around in VR and sort of build stuff around you and talk to other people and interact and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, there's no reason why that couldn't happen in Sapiens, right? That you could just hang out with people and build stuff and just,
like, it's just a virtual environment at the end of the day.
Yeah. So, it might go that way or it might not. I don't know, but it's just, there's certainly a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, I can imagine with emerging tech like VR, are there, is AR something that is on your radar for ways of incorporating Sapiens in an AR environment?
AR, not so much. I don't think it's gonna. I can't see AR fitting. But I mean, VR, VR. I have had it working in VR a few years back now, I guess, a couple of years back. And it was awesome. It was just so cool. But I just realized, I'm a solo dev. I need to focus, or this game's not going to ever get out. But so it's like partially implemented. And like once I have controller support and all that kind of stuff, and actually, get the UI working with that, I think VR is not going to be a huge step beyond that. And that's, it's just this whole like immersive thing where you just walk through these things that you're building and stuff. And I think that's almost unique. There aren't that many games where you can build stuff in VR and sort of play in that way. I mean, there are, but
yeah, that is going to be an interesting future, just like cross platform between PC and VR, and what kind of new experiences that can create. Just one question that I had on my mind: are you 100% on Sapiens, or is Magic Jungle developing multiple titles kind of in the background, or like, is this your sole focus right now? I'm wondering if you can work on multiple things at once or not.
No, so I guess when I went full-time with Sapiens, that was like, even Blockheads hasn't really seen any love since then, and it's really, it's getting to end of life with Blockheads. And no, I have zero plans at all for any other games. It's just all Sapiens from now on, because I can't even bear to think of anything else, actually. But I mean, I'm super into Sapiens anyway. Like, it's not like I was just trying to get to the launch and then I'm just done. It's like, it was always going to be get to early access, and then I've got like 2-3 years of at least of just stuff planned, and I can't see my enthusiasm dropping anytime soon for that. So
Yeah. Did you plan on investigating Patreon or anything like that to kind of self fund, or was just kind of going early access on Steam the like always the goal that you wanted to get to?
so with Patreon and stuff, I mean, because Blockheads did well enough that I could fund Sapiens, it just felt like I don't need the money to be able to do it. So it just didn't really feel right to ask for it. So I guess I could have still done that, but it would have been more about trying to build up community and hype rather than the money. Yeah.
Hmm. One question I love asking indie devs is if you have a game design document, like do you value all of, because when you're an indie dev, you don't need to worry about communicating your design intent or systems really, so you don't really need to document anything. But do you document yourself? Do you have a game design document for Sapiens or any sort of repository for what Sapiens is if you were to try and hand that off to someone else?
No, not exactly. So in the early days, it was just a bunch of notes on paper, just sprawled out all over the place, and then I'd lose notes and all sorts. But yeah, so that was my design document. But now it's mostly on Trello, where I just jot down ideas. I've got different, what are they, lists on Trello for different ideas and for things that are definitely going to happen or things that might happen and that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's relatively well organized, actually. It's sort of, I've had to organize a little bit more because I mean, it's just so many things just come up that you think of just in the spirit of the moment. And especially now, like watching YouTubers play it and stuff, it's just like you watch a YouTuber play a game and it's like the best feedback you could possibly have. It's really good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really happy that you now have that that intel from YouTube streamers playing the game, because that is incredibly validating and also just helpful for how you move forward. When it comes to the code, is your code quite tidy, would you say, like in terms of variable names and comments that you make? Is that something that you take a lot of pride in, like that you could hand it off to another programmer, or is it just a big mess? It's just a spaghetti junction, and you don't really care about that at this stage?
Well, it's a compromise, isn't it? So with Blockheads, I spent a year making Blockheads, and then I launched it, and that year was just like, I've just got to get this game out as soon as possible. I was really quite low on funds, and I was like, I got to get this game out, and I was working hard and fast and making a massive mess of the code. And then when I had to actually do updates after that, I was okay for a couple of years, but then it just got too hard. I just couldn't add anything to the code anymore. So I learned a lot, and so Sapiens is a lot tidier, and in fact, so the majority of the code is actually lower, so that's open source basically, and you can go into the game resources directory and just look through it and see all the code. So I kind of knew while I was writing it that other people were going to look at it, which might have helped a little bit. But it's certainly like different people would probably judge it differently. It's fine for me. Like I'm very familiar with it. I can use it very well, and I think the modders are struggling a little bit because I find my own way through things. I've got my own solutions to stuff. Like the fact that I'm using Lua in the first place isn't, it's not, instead of Unreal or Unity or whatever, custom engine makes it quite complicated. And then I've got server client infrastructure, like it's all like when you're playing single player, there's always a server running in the background. So there's quite a lot of complexity added just in the fact that it's always multiplayer and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's complex, but I feel pretty good about the code. It's okay.
Yeah. Are there any limitations to that, path that, you've committed to that, say, someone developing in Unreal or Unity would be, far more along? I'm just curious for those listening that maybe are interested in going down a similar path, what kind of compromises they would need to make.
It's a little bit tricky because I've never actually used Unreal or Unity to make a game. I've experimented with them, but I don't really know. I think it's just very different. I mean, for me personally, just I don't think I could have made this game in an off-the-shelf engine for quite a few reasons, but particularly because like when you hit problems, when you hit like limitations in the engine, it's very difficult to figure out how to fix them. But with me, I've got total control. I've written all the engine. I know how it works. I know its limitations, and I know it. I know it's so inside out that it actually makes things a lot easier, I think. So I think like in the early stages, I probably could have got off the ground faster had I chosen an engine. But these later stages, it's just really, really good to know, everything that's going on.
Oh, that's awesome to hear, actually, and I don't think that's not the common path for indie devs these days. Like in game jams, it's 95% Unity and 4% Unreal, and maybe I very rarely have come across an indie dev that's built their own kind of engine. So that's really interesting to hear. One thing I want to know is when it comes to indie dev, and you've had a very long journey in the space, and some people fresh out of uni might be wanting to make Sapiens as soon as they graduate, and I think your journey is really interesting because you've released multiple titles, and Blockheads being kind of an initial success in order to fund the development of Sapiens is really interesting. And I'd love to know if you have any advice because I'm sure you still remember what it was like in those early days. Any advice for people just having this passion to develop their dream game? Did you have to kind of put your ideas on hold, knowing that you needed more time later? Like, did you have a more pragmatic approach about what first games you developed initially?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably talk about this for hours, so it's I'm going to try to figure out how to sum it up quickly. But I think, so in the early days, definitely, like the first game I made was Tetris. I just tried to rip off Tetris, and then it's just kind of just really slowly evolving from there and trying stuff. So one of the early games was actually the first version of Chopper, and then I was on the benefit at the time, like when I was learning to program, and so then I managed to get a job because I made Chopper like at the Met Service doing weather graphics stuff. So I think that was actually really valuable as well, because it's sort of being on a team with other programmers and learning from their code, the code base and all that, kind of working in that environment. So that was hugely valuable. So I guess maybe it's not always wise to just start making games and try to just carry on. Like you need to just learn a few other parts of the industry and stuff too. But then later on, I was sort of saving up. Like this was before the App Store launch. I was saving up to try to go indie again. Like I was sort of ready. And then I was trying to go. I was going to make Chopper shareware and try to make some money out of it that way and sort of grow up from there. But then the App Store came out, and I was just really lucky with the timing. Just as I was about to basically quit my job, the App Store came out and gave me a big funding boost because Chopper was in there, and that was enough to kind of really get me started with the whole indie thing. But that was an opportunity that just popped along, and that's not going to happen for everyone. It was a sort of once in a lifetime thing, almost, the App Store launching.
Yeah, well, if it's not too much of a personal question, how much was that number that you decided was enough to go indie?
So I was trying to save up $50,000 to live off for however long I could make it last. So I mean that was my goal at the time. I guess that's probably worth more these days, but it was just like I wanted to be able to last a year or two, or more, and then try to just make enough money to keep going and try to build it into something, make some more games. So I guess if you can manage to save it up, it just means that you don't have that kind of like if you've got a publisher, then you've got things that you have to do to pay them back and stuff. So it was really good to just be self-funded if you can manage that. Yeah.
And then when you developed Blockheads, what was that journey like? Was that something did you see an opportunity for that kind of title in the space, or was it just your pure passion that led you to developing it? I'm curious to know like how that business to passion balance was at that point.
Yeah, I guess it was a bit of both. I mean, I think in all cases, like I've realized that there is a market for what I'm trying to make. Like I wouldn't just make a game that had no market just for the passion thing, probably. Well, not at this point. I would have earlier on, but not so much these days. Sort of lost my train of thought.
So Blockheads, what you said that you got 600,000 downloads in the first day or first week. What do you think led to that? Was there anything about that process that that led to that success?
Well, yeah, I still don't really know. I think it did hit the market. There was definite demand for it. People could see the similarities to Minecraft and all that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, there was also like cross promotion stuff. So like the Temple Run developers put some ads in Temple Run, which was doing really well at the time and stuff, and a few other indies were helping to promote it too. But yeah, I still don't really know. I still don't really know how it took off so much. And it just continued to get a whole lot of downloads for a long time too. And I don't know. I mean, we might never know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of stories like that. Just an algorithm change or a new platform emerging. It's hard to try and plan your success. You just kind of have to maybe follow your passion at the same time as hoping. Yeah. How much do you think is up to luck for like a successful title? Like, do you think it is something like an indie dev wanting to pursue game dev as a career? Do you think it is a wise option like for a career, or do you think it is very dependent on luck? Most indie devs don't succeed with the titles that they release. What advice would you give to someone entering into the industry or wanting to consider this as a career?
It's tricky. I mean, there's a lot of games that are going out into like saturated marketplaces filled with other very similar games, and they're games that don't have a lot to make them different. To make someone want to buy that game versus any of the other options. And I think that's really important. You do have to have that in mind. And I think there's a little bit of a mismatch between like the audience for games and the developers of games. Like there's like the games that developers play aren't necessarily the games that the audience wants. And so if you're making a game that you want to play, then good chance there's a lot of other developers that are making the same sort of game, or for the same audience. So yeah, I think it is really important if you can try to see a gap. Like I think I've done that with both Blockheads and with Sapiens. Like I really have looked for the gaps, and I think it's important. It's really important.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's really, really valuable advice. And I just love that I've got your time to talk about this experience right now, because when Sapiens goes for its full release launch, I'm sure it's going to be, your perspective on everything's probably going to be a lot different by then after, building out all of these features. It's going to be really interesting. But we're kind of reaching our time, and I do really appreciate just your openness to share how your journey's been, and what struggles you've had along the way, and sharing the insights into why you're successful in your journey. One question I just want to ask before we close it off is, what would you say and this could be a bit more of a personal one, but what are your biggest failures in your career, do you think, that they could have attributed to experience that have gotten you to where you are today, but what would you say your biggest failures are, or hopes that would have been successful but weren't? I feel like there could be some interesting experiences that you have had.
I mean, there's so many things. So many. One that's really sticks out that affected me quite a lot was that I used to take feedback really quite to heart, and if I saw negative reviews, I'd be like, oh, this is a thing that I have to fix. And at one point, like I released a game and it did it was actually the Chopper 2 on the Mac. It did well, but then I got all these sort of feedback reports that were quite negative. Some, nasty stuff too, like, quite nasty, But these days, it doesn't really affect me. And I don't know if that's just because of experience. I mean, it is experience, but whether that's just that I've got hard, or whether that it's, I've just learned that it's actually not that important. It's the big picture that matters. A single bit of feedback means it's just, and also the other thing is like not everyone's going to love your game. People coming at it with all sort of different expectations, different ideas of what they want out of a game. And, it doesn't matter what you make, there's going to be people who it's just not for them. And you just got to accept that that's fine. You listen to their feedback and think, is there something I could do to help that maybe? But just don't take it personally. Yeah, that's kind of the major thing I've learned.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. And I think you're right. It's not something you can really learn without learn by being told. It's probably something you have to experience yourself. When you've put your blood, sweat, and tears into a project, and then someone rips it apart, you can't really teach someone that lesson. You have to kind of experience it yourself. So I think that is one of the lessons that just you learn over time, and that gets you to where you are today. And who knows? I'm curious. I love having thought exercises, like wondering what Sapiens would have been like if that was your first game that you created. And how just how the last couple of weeks would have affected you if this was the project you did after Chopper 2. And what that kind of reception would have been like. And you could probably talk about that for hours. Or just like the different environment, is now the right time. Like what would have happened if you released Sapiens in early access 6 months from now, and what would have changed? So it's really, really interesting. But I think we'll pause it there. I just want to say a big thank you to you. If anyone listening is interested in following Dave's journey, you can find him on Twitter at is it at Magic Dave?
Yep.
MAJIC Dave, and then go to playsapiens.com to see the latest the latest dev vlogs, the links to all of the different sites that Sapiens is, all the different platforms that Sapiens is on, so that you can follow the journey there. Is there anywhere else that you would like people to follow you or get in touch if they have further questions?
No, that sums it up.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dave. And I wish you the best for the rest of what you've laid out in the roadmap. And I think it's probably smart to not give times at this stage. You've kept it nice and broad. And I think that just goes to show how experienced you are in this kind of process. And just little things like that I think will give you longevity, and probably not burning out too early on this project. But I'm really excited to keep observing you as you work towards a full release. And thank you so much for your time and hearing your thoughts today.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. It's good to just chat about the game. I'm quite happy to share.